Welcome back to the MOOC course on corporate social responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And we have been, talking about various aspects of corporate governance. We've discussed what corporate governance is. We've talked about the theories of corporate governance. We've talked about the models and systems of corporate governance and how corporate governance shapes up in different contexts. And in the very last class, which was a very brief lecture, we discussed how corporate governance is implemented. So in this class, we are actually going to take that discussion on implementation forward and talk about the boards. What is a board of directors? We hear about the boards of directors and we hear that board of directors has done this and that, and so we hear all these terms on the news. So what exactly is the board of directors? What do they do? What does it mean to have a board of directors? Why are they there? We've already discussed why they are there. But in this particular class, we'll talk about the nuts and bolts. So I'm also teaching you a little bit about what organizations are composed of. And then, of course, in the following lectures, we'll tie in corporate governance with corporate social responsibility and how these two feed into each other. So you will see why we had so much of discussion on the corporate governance, the structure of organizations. Okay, let's see what we have here. So board of directors. Now, what is the board of directors? The board of directors is a circle of wise men and women reflecting together with the management about the day-by-day policy of an organization. So board of directors is, it's a collection of men and women who are sitting around a table, maybe in a very comfortable setting, but discussing about how an organization is really functioning and discussing about the policies that are made to run the organization. Okay. Now, what does the board of directors do? The board of directors focuses on the long term and on the longest term, the organization's ethics, among other things, in view of the confidence in and the reputation of the enterprise, both internal and external. It discusses what the organization is planning to do, what is the vision of the organization, where is it going in terms of the working and the value systems that are to be followed in doing so. Okay, among other things, in view of the confidence in and the reputation of the enterprise. What does the world think of the enterprise? For the short term, for the long term, what do they want the world, what do they want the people connected to the organization think of the organization in the longer term? So the reputation of the organization within the organization and outside the organization, and that becomes the responsibility of the board. Duties of the board of directors, again, this is in very, very fine print. So duties: strategic planning. Strategic planning is the duty, and towards fulfilling this duty, the specific activities are approving a corporate philosophy and annually reviewing and approving the corporation's strategy. So designing a strategy of the organization and trying to find out what the philosophy of the organization is, and then reviewing and approving the corporation's strategy in light of the long-term philosophy of the organization and in light of the long-term vision, in light of where the organization is supposed to go. So that becomes one of the goals of one of the duties of the board of directors. The second duty here is capital allocation. These are the people who have the money that can be channeled, that needs to be used to run the organization. They are the people who are going to take that money and give it to people who have the time and resources to run the organization. So the duty is capital allocation. They have this pool of money, they review and approve the corporation's capital allocations. They find out how the money is going to be used by the people who are going to run the organization, and they approve or suggest or make changes to the plans of the management in allocating these financial resources. Then the third duty here is long range goals. What is the organization aiming towards? So in light of this, or in line with this, the board of directors reviews and approves the corporation's long range goals. They review and approve the corporation's financial standards, policies and plans. So they review, they find out what the organization's they decide on the long range goals of the organization. They have the managers, the people running the organization, tell them about or advise them on what the organization's goals should be. So they get together, they have a discussion, and then they review the long range goals suggested by or discussed in this collaborative activity, and then they approve the goals that should be set for the organization for the long range, and then they approve the organization's financial standards, they approve the organization's policies and plans to achieve these long range goals. So that is the next duty. The third duty of the the next duty of the board of directors is performance appraisal. And towards this, the specific activities are approving annually the performance of the board and taking steps to improve its performance, appraising top management, comparing review results with corporate philosophy, goals and competition. So what do? They approve, they have a method of self-appraisal. They find out where they started and where they are going. So they appraise themselves, they also appraise the top management. They find out who they hired to do the work for them, then they find out whether these people have been doing the work they were assigned, then they compare the results of these two with the goals of the organization, the philosophy of the organization and the competition the organization is facing, so that they know whether these goals are really going to help them get ahead of the competition or compete with their competitors or not. Okay, so that is the specific activities they engage in. Then is manpower planning. Electing, and they don't go to the nuts and bolts of manpower planning. They find out, they elect or select the top management, and they make sure that the management succession is provided for. Now what is management succession? They find out who the people, they decide on who will they delegate the responsibility of running the organization to, and then they select these people, or they may elect them from a pool of candidates, and then they after that they make sure that the succession planning is taken care of. Now what is succession planning? Now I am going to human resources. See, all of these things are interconnected at some stage. So succession planning is a plan to facilitate the movement of the currently serving officer out of the current role and induction of the person who can take the place of this person who is leaving the organization for any reason whatsoever. It's called separation. It could be a voluntary separation where the person actually leaves the job or goes away, or involuntary separation in the case of, say, death, or a promotion, or being fired from the job. So various kinds of separation are there. So this is how the promotion is again a voluntary separation. You actually move to the next level, but moving to or a transfer, for example, so again the boundaries are blurred. Let's not go into those details, but anyway, so succession planning is the plan to facilitate the exit of one officer and the entry of another officer to take care of the same role without letting the work get hampered, without letting the work get affected. And that plan is then reviewed and approved by the board of directors as far as the top management is concerned, as far as the major responsibilities are concerned. Of course, they delegate the responsibility of ensuring succession plans for the lower levels to the people who they've hired to manage this workforce. Okay. And again, they go back to strategic planning. So they ensure that the status of organizational strength and manpower planning is equal to the requirements of the long range goals. They review everything and they ensure that the status of the organizational strength, the number of people, the skills they've brought in, the kind of work they are doing is equal to the requirements of the long range goals, is in line or is sufficient to meet the long range goals, to achieve the long range goals. So then the cycle is complete, and these constitute the duties of the board of directors. This is the kind of work the board of directors is ideally expected to do. Okay. All right. The competencies desired in a good director are personal qualities, relational qualities, professional qualities, ethical qualities, motivation, being complementary within the board as a whole. So, personal qualities, how do they relate to each other, or their own qualities, personal qualities, relational qualities, how do they relate to what their interpersonal relationships with people around them, professional qualities, the skills they bring to the table, ethical qualities, motivation, and being complementary within the board as a whole, adding value to the board, not really duplicating whatever other people are bringing in, but adding something unique to the skill set of the board. Okay. Then next, some critical considerations in the appointment of a director. Motivation, how motivated the person is, the skills they bring in, the value added to the board. This is something that they see, that the people electing or selecting the board of directors sees. The time they have available to serve on the board of directors and do good for the organization. Incompatibilities and conflicts of interest, and incompatibilities in terms of personal and professional incompatibilities. I mean, you may think that a person is very, very suited for a particular role, but the person may not be very suited. So, because they have other priorities or other interests. So, incompatibilities, the degree of similarity between personal ethics and deontology and the ethical codes followed by the enterprise. So, deontology, like we discussed in the previous class, is focusing on actions, focusing on the process, as opposed to just evaluating the end result as good or bad, as ethical or unethical. So, the process also becomes important. So, the degree of similarity between personal ethics and the attention to ethics of the process and the ethical codes followed by the enterprise. The degree of similarity between the vision, declaration of assignments and strategy within the board. The presence of an assurance for personal liability. If they are serving on the board, they are contributing to the decisions, then they need to assure the board that they will take responsibility for the decisions that they are trying to push for. So, that also becomes a critical consideration in the appointment of a director. Okay. Self-evaluation by the board. This is another activity. The board can only demand quality from its management and employees if its own working is of good quality. No authority without credibility. They must walk the talk. Again, we can't expect people to do something that we will not be able to do ourselves. Okay, so we can only demand quality from others if we are doing quality work ourselves. Okay, and if we cannot have authority over others if people don't believe in whatever we are doing. No authority without credibility. They need to walk the talk. Okay, all right. Qualitative streams of information and communication and the scorecard. Now, they need to ensure, board of directors needs to ensure that the information received by the board and sent by the board should be adequate. It should be neither too much nor too little, and it should be sent in time to people who are going to use that information to make critical decisions about the organization. Why? Because very little or little information or inadequate information leads to unbalanced decisions. You don't have enough information. On the other hand, having too much information, often in combination with a shortage of preparation time, leads to partial decisions. So, this problem needs to be taken care of. Okay, what is a balanced scorecard? Again, I am going into human resources, and I am sorry for the tiny font, but this is just an overview. What is a balanced scorecard? A balanced scorecard is a performance measurement system to performance management system. Now, perspectives to managing performance: you have customers, you have business processes, you have innovation and learning. Let me show this to you. Actually, this will make more sense. The description will make more sense if I show this to you. A balanced scorecard shows you how the different perspectives of the way in which the organization is working align with its vision and strategy. A balanced scorecard lists the activities that are being taken from to satisfy different perspectives of the organization and then compares them with the vision and strategy of the organization and gives you a metric. It gives you a number as to what percentage or how well the activities that are being taken care of here for different perspectives are aligning with the vision and strategy of the organization. So, financial perspective, for example, how do we satisfy our shareholders? What are we doing to take care of our shareholders? Customer perspectives, how do our customers view us? People perspective, how do our employees contribute and how do they view us? Operational perspective, how we excel at what we do. These are the specific activities. Okay, the explanation is here. I can read the explanation, but it may or may not make very much sense to you if I read it. So when I give it to you in the slides, I request that you read this information and get back to me if you have any questions understanding. I'm just going to look at the last portion here. I'll read out what strategic mapping is. Strategic mapping is the definition of strategic aims and relation of these aims to organizational activities to serve as a basis for specifying goals within the different performance perspectives. So that is what we are talking about here. This is called strategic mapping. Comparing what we want out of the vision and strategy with what we are doing in different spheres to take care of that or to reach the goals that we have set for ourselves. Okay. Here is an example of a balanced scorecard. The goal is a broad objective. So, for example, here the goal or broad objective here, the measure or metric, objective or target and development actions. If the goal is to achieve excellent customer satisfaction, the metric or measure for doing so would be percentage of customers lost over 12 months, for example. The objective in this direction is that now we need to ensure that we lose less than 10% loss, less than 10% of customers in 6 months time. Development actions, we develop lost customers report. We make a report, we outline the reasons why these customers were lost and the actions we are taking to recover these lost customers. Okay, so that is a measure, a tangible, verifiable, measurable activity that we are carrying out. We are losing customers. How many customers are we losing and why? These are the reasons, these are the customers we have lost. What do we need to do next? We need to do whatever it takes to make sure that customers are not lost. So let's cut this down. This is the number of customers we have lost in the past 6 months. Past 6 months we lost 12% customers. The next 6 months, let's bring the number down to a reasonable number. We can't bring it down to 0. So let's just push it back by 2%. Let's make sure that we don't lose more than 10% customers in the next 6 months. And let's note down whatever we do in order to facilitate this, so that becomes a benchmark and we keep doing whatever it is that we were doing to recover lost customers, to prevent loss of customers. And then we prepare a report based on this and we submit it. Okay. The second example here would be or could be percentage of customers who completed a customer satisfaction survey in the past 6 months. How do we know that customers are satisfied? We have them complete a customer satisfaction survey. So the objective or target is to ensure that more than 80% of customers complete a customer satisfaction survey this year. We find out how many customers completed a customer satisfaction survey. Let's say the number was 50%, maybe the next time we can push it to 60%, maybe not 80%, but we have a realistic number. And then what are the development actions that we do? We find out what is in the customer satisfaction survey and we use customer feedback to improve the customer satisfaction survey so that more and more people fill out the survey. Occasionally you will find that these surveys are long drawn out. Now, one very popular, I'll give you an example, one very popular e-commerce company has a very short, very brief customer satisfaction survey that you just fill out, and none of the questions are really compulsory. So you just, they have 5 stars. How did we do? What do we need to do? 3 or 4 questions. So it becomes very easy to complete it. So even if you're not in the mood and you've had a good experience, one feels tempted to just click on 5 stars or 4 stars, So even if you don't have the time, the length of the survey is inviting. So, that is something that you could do, and I'm sure it didn't come the first time. The first time the survey must have been very long, but based on customer feedback, they improved and improved and improved. And even a person like me who's not very comfortable with filling out these surveys, I feel compelled, especially when I've had good service, I feel compelled to give positive feedback to the person who helped me at their end, so that this person also feels encouraged. So, that comes as a result of this kind of an activity. Okay. So this is an example of a balanced scorecard. You can see, here there are some more activities here. All 4 then help you achieve excellent customer satisfaction. So you can see how these things are broken up, in a balanced scorecard. Anyway, so okay, what are the qualities of a good scorecard? It should meet certain quality standards. It should be clear, it should be plainly structured, but complete, up to date and accurate, correct, comparative with the past, comparative to similar organizations, subject to standards, and readable. So it should be easy to grasp. Why? Because the primary purpose of a scorecard is accountability. People who are reading, who are making sense of a scorecard, should understand why it has been, given to you. And so going back to our previous discussion here, we were talking about what the board of directors must do. They must convey clear information to their stakeholders, to the members who have elected them, and to the management that they are going to supervise. And then in doing so, the information that they pass, and I am repeating myself, the information that they pass should be adequate. It should be neither too much nor too little, and it should be sent in time to people who usually do not have very much time to read it. Okay, so it should be sent in time, and it should be in a format that's readable, that's easy to understand, that's quick to grasp. A scorecard where everything is in the form of a table is so quick, it's so comfortable. You have everything out in the form of an infographic. So you read it and it's just in front of you, and you can make sense of it in a flash like this. So that would help them. Okay. Here. What are committees now? Committees they work under the order of and within the board. The actual authority to make decisions stays with the board. So committees are constituted when something needs more looking at, something needs more looking after. Okay. Now we have different types of boards, but maybe we can stop the discussion here and we can continue with types of boards in another class, because that will take a little bit more time. So I will stop the discussion about this here, and we'll continue with types of boards in the next class. Thank you very much for listening.